Gymnastics is something that I think you just feel, the turning upside down and moving your body in different ways. It's working your body around equipment. So in artistic gymnastics, you work on the equipment, on the balance beam, on the bars. In rhythmic, you work with equipment, with the ribbon, with the hoop. And there was just something, it wasn't like dance. There's nothing against dance. I had to study ballet like crazy, but it wasn't the same thing as working with apparatus. My name is Wendy Hilliard, and I've been around for a while. My sport is rhythmic gymnastics. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, born and raised. I love Detroit growing up. It's home. It's full of music. It definitely went through its challenges, there's no doubt. I discovered gymnastics. Saw it on TV. I started flipping in the front yard. It was tough because we had to go out to the suburbs to get a full gymnastics program. My mother was like, enough of this going out to the suburbs to take gymnastics. Besides, it was so costly. My parents and their friends had to raise money for us to go to competitions. But all of a sudden we had these 4 coaches from the Ukraine, hired by the City of Detroit Recreation Department. We started this great gymnastics team in Detroit. There was some ribbon in the gym. My coach, Zena, I begged her to teach me. Then I started getting serious. I switched over to rhythmic gymnastics, which was a new Olympic sport. This is a very performance-based sport. You always had music and a storyline. It's an individual sport, so it allowed you to express yourself. And I found gymnastics a way to express myself. You're able to do it through your skills. And I'll just tell you, it's not an easy sport. And you have to get over that one really, really soon. It takes a lot of practice, so unless you really, really like it a lot, that's the only way you can be successful with the sport. You're training very hard, and then you want to make the national team. The first national team I made was to go to the Pan Pacific Championships. Competing for your country it's exquisite. Everybody came up from Detroit. It was a really big deal. I was the first black to make a national team in rhythmic gymnastics. It's a hard process. Everyone's trying to just make the team. So being the only black, coming from Detroit was really helpful because my community was black and integrated. A few years moving into the sport. That was my biggest challenge. We were again trying to get the World Championship team for, I think it was 1983. We went to Colorado Springs. At the end of the 6 weeks, they bring you all up to the room and they said, this is the team going to the World Championships. And they read off everybody's name and they didn't read off my name. And I was shocked, one. And then I look around the room, my personal coach, Zena, who was there, was just holding her head down. And all the other gymnasts were like looking at me. It's like, and so, I go up to the head coach and she says, you just stand out too much. And I was like, I just can't believe you're telling me this. I was totally hurt right away, on the phone with my parents, and other girls that were chosen on the team were ranked lower than I was. And so we wrote a letter to USA Gymnastics and we said, we don't think this is fair. She's been on the national team, World Championship team. And they came back and they said, we're changing the decision of these judges and coaches and we're going to make everybody by rank order. So the top 6 gymnasts will be going to the World Championships, including me. It was very interesting because, my parents had been through it, the 60s and 70s, where you had to fight for things. So I think in their eyes, they're like, no, they're not telling my kid because she's black, she's not going to be able to do this. And then we went to the World Championships. The Cuban team had 5 black girls and 1 white Cuban, and opposite of the US team. But they beat us, which was kind of funny. I am so proud that I did it because it was important to set a standard, a turning point in my life as far as really becoming an advocate for athletes. I hope it really does open doors. I think it's making people realize what you can do. This was the time when they were starting to have athletes serve on committees so that they could have a voice. My girlfriends were like, oh, we want Wendy to be our athlete representative because she's going to fight for us. And that kind of started the next part of my career. When I was first on the national team, I was the youngest. By the time I finished, I was oldest. And it was a combination of me loving the sport, me wanting to be the best that I could be. It was my expression. I had found my sport. 1988, I missed making the Olympic trials by 0.01. It was devastating. I just graduated from college. I was able to go to the Olympics to work for television. After that, I decided to stop competing, and I started performing a lot, using my gymnastic skills. We started a dance gymnastics company, Christopher Harrison, Anti-Gravity. There are a lot of gymnasts that come to perform on Broadway and things, so he kind of called everybody together. It led me to lots of great things, including Broadway. During the time when I became pro, it was very exciting. I became a television commentator, and I was coaching at the same time. My athlete, Aliane back row, made the Olympic team in 1996. Her mom was so funny, but I'll never forget this. She says, Wendy, this sport is so expensive, it's so elitist, I can't believe I'm doing this, this has got to change. You got to do something about it. So that stuck in my head. So as soon as Aliane went for the Olympics and I saw the national team and there are not really many more blacks, 8 years after I left, I said, I really want to go back to grassroots. It was my first kid. It was so much work. I must say during this time, I was president of the Women's Sports Foundation, and so that gave me a really good foundation on one, fighting for athletes, learning how to run a nonprofit, grant, raising money, things like that. I wanted something for kids that did it for the passion. I love gymnastics, and I wanted kids in New York that love gymnastics to be able to do it even if they couldn't pay. It's been very rewarding. We've served a lot of kids. It's a great environment to be in. The parents really appreciate having this opportunity. It's my giving back. It's me going back to Detroit and how I did things, and I just think it's kind of my calling that I have these skills to be able to give to others. We just put out flyers like, come free gymnastics classes. And little by little groups, all of a sudden, we went from having kids like 8 in the class and things like that to a summer program. The only way for me to afford this is to partner with people that have a facility where we can do gymnastics. Now at 20 years, we have the story. We've proven ourselves. We've taken kids that had, been in the city, been in Harlem, not had access, and we've made them national competitors. We're growing. Our staff is growing, what we provide for the kids. Our big dream is space. Our big dream is to really have more resources so that all my kids can go to all the competitions they want to. My kids deserve the best. We're having our big fundraiser in October this year after the Olympic Games. And the other exciting thing is that we're expanding to Detroit. An exciting year for me to go full circle to what inspired me to start this foundation in the beginning, to go back to my roots, let people see in other cities around the country that this is what you can do for kids. It's hard work, but they deserve it, and they just flourish under this type of attention.